My name is Wade Ogle. I'm a retired United Methodist minister, and presently I'm the executive director at the House of Refuge here in Morganton. The House of Refuge is a men's night shelter, homeless night shelter. We have 14 beds and are normally about 90% full. We are the only men's homeless shelter in the Morganton area. There's one in Hickory and there's one in Marion, but we are the only one. We're both an emergency shelter and I guess a night shelter. Our check-in is at 4:30 every day. Everybody has to be off the property at 8 o'clock. We have probably 50% of our guys who work, and so we reserve their beds for them since they're working. We offer 2 meals a day, breakfast and dinner, shower facilities, laundry facilities. Our sleeping facilities are a bunk room. We have a house manager and an assistant house manager. The ministry has been there for now 16 years. We are located on Carbon City Road, just outside of Morganton, I guess that's Highway 70.
How do folks come to you? Is it word of mouth, referrals from other agencies?
It is both word of mouth, referral from other agencies. Our assistant manager, and by the way, our house manager and our assistant manager are both homeless. They are just employees of the ministry. They're recommended by other folks. Sometimes they come from hospitals. Sometimes they come from other 501(c)(3) agencies. And what we require, we are a low barrier shelter. We require a picture ID, and they're required to pass a breathalyzer 0.0. We drug test on suspicion only. We feel like that's a better way to get people housed rather than having them living on the street.
Right.
The manager has a private bedroom, private bath. He is responsible for check-in, basically the operation of the house, making sure the rules are followed and that sort of thing. The assistant manager has a private room. His role is majority of cooking and cleaning. He cooks breakfast, he cooks dinner, and all these guys get together sometimes and they do special things. They'll have a big cookout for the 4th of July. They'll have something special at Christmas, something special for New Year's. A lot of the guys have food stamps, so they share those food stamps. And I mean, they've had steak, they've had alligator, they've had a lot of things that, you know, I tell them they eat better than I do. So what happens in a homeless shelter is that we do have some long-term occupants who work, but these guys form a community. They're a family, just like, you know, my family, your family, and they look after each other. If one guy's got a car and another guy doesn't and needs a ride, they chip in and give them a ride. So they are a good bunch of guys for the most part. Mm-hmm. We do have some short timers that'll come a day or two, a week or two. Mm-hmm. We have a couple guests that have mental problems that probably they're in the best place they could be right now. Some of them are in transition from one place to another. Some are looking for work. Some are waiting on housing, and of course affordable housing is hard to find, but a lot of times they'll make arrangements with parents, with family for housing. We've had a couple that have come and said, look, I need to stay a week. I've got an apartment coming open, but right now I don't have a place to stay. Mm-hmm. So for the most part, our guys go in and out, and some of them have medical problems, some of them have mental problems, and we refer those folks to other agencies. We try to cooperate within the community. Burke United Christian Ministries, Caring Alternative. There are several places. We are not a big organization. We don't have caseworkers. It's pretty much me and the other two guys. So what we have decided to do is do what we do well and let other organizations do what they do well.
Right.
And we constantly refer those folks to the right agency, whether it's for medical reasons, whether it's for housing help, any of those things. There's plenty of other agencies that will do that.
In terms of working with other agencies, has that always been as well established as it is now? Do you feel like the networking, the coordinating, the referrals?
I think it's better now than it has been. And that just comes from all the agencies deciding that, we're not going to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
I've been there 4 years now, and there probably in the beginning was a lot of competition between the agencies. They didn't want to share a whole lot of resources. They didn't want to share a whole lot of knowledge. But now, as we've worked together over the years, I think that is getting a whole lot better, and I think it will get better because the homeless situation in this area is getting worse. Is probably not the right word, but there are more homeless people now than there were. Many of them, what I call are transients. Years ago, you'd go downtown and you knew every homeless person by name, by their nickname, where they were, what they needed. And now there's a lot of folks that nobody knows. And they'll be here a month or two and go on, and then more people come. I don't think our problem here in Burke County is any worse than Hickory or Asheville, or certainly no worse than Charlotte. I served in Charlotte for 9 years. Their men's homeless shelter, their main men's homeless shelter, has 400 beds, and there's still people on the street. So, and you may want to know why I'm the director of the homeless shelter. When I was in Charlotte, we worked a lot with the homeless. We had one guy come to one of the programs that we had, and he sat down at the piano and started playing. And I went over to him, and I said, we've been praying for a keyboard player. Would you be interested? And he looked at me, and I don't mean this wrong, but I served a predominantly white church, and he was black. And he looked at me like, you want me to do what? Well, he started playing the keyboard. We found out that he was a crack addict, that he had a record. And over the years, I'm not saying that the sailing wasn't smooth, but now he is a recovering addict. He has a job, he has a car, and is still playing the keyboard at that church. And the reason I share that is I know it works. I know that there is a way out if, first of all, the individual wants to get out, and secondly, if there's enough support around them.
Right.
Now, I was pretty tough on him most of the time, but I think he understood that, and I still count him as a friend. So that's why my heart is with the homeless.
Right.
I like to see success stories. We've had success stories at the shelter. We had a guy there that stayed with us. I guess he was there 3 or 4 months. He got a job, found an apartment. Now he has a car. He has moved back into productive society, and there's several like that. So we don't plan for these guys to stay there. And I have seen them many success stories, and that's why I stay there. I think that ministry makes a difference. It keeps people off the street. It keeps them sober and straight, and I believe that's a important step, and there's support there. So a majority of our support does come through churches and other business organizations. The biggest thing that churches do, we charge a $3 a night fee, so they have a vested interest. Now, a lot of guys can't afford that. The churches will sponsor them. Many of the churches in the area do that, and we appreciate that. Not only do they give guest support, but they contribute. We have several of our guests that attend church regularly. It doesn't have anything to do with me, but being a retired minister, I think I build a relationship with these other ministers, and they can see that, I understand both where they're coming from and where we're coming from.
Sounds like things are working as well as can be expected right now. I mean, are there any frustrations you've experienced in carrying on the ministry, supporting the ministry?
Well, from time to time, normally our donations, in-kind donations, food and that sort of thing, keep up real well. But they're on low points, especially with the recent inflation. We used to get a lot of food from Second Harvest and other food banks, and it appears that they don't have the food anymore, or they are distributing food directly through their agencies rather than passing it down. And we just have basic needs. Our needs are milk, bread, eggs, and meat. And most of the time we keep that up. But I have seen over the last year our individual donations, people that just come by and say, I've got 3 gallons of milk for you. I've got a dozen eggs. Those have really fallen off. And I think it's because of the raising prices, and a lot of it probably is coming out of the pandemic. So most of the time we're in good shape, and if we need something, we just put it out on Facebook, and people come around and respond. Trying to find affordable housing. When you have a young man or a man working at a decent job 40 hours a week, and they cannot find a suitable place. Now, there's places out there, but some of the places that are for rent, you're better in the shelter than you are in those places, because they're not the safest. And a lot of these guys are recovering addicts and that sort of thing. And in many of those spots, they tend to get back in that. And even Berkeley United Christian Ministries and places that help place people are having a problem. There are people with HUD housing vouchers that cannot find a place because I don't think HUD has kept up with the inflation, so their voucher won't cover what the rent would be, and they can't afford the difference with the utilities and that sort of thing. So I think the biggest stumbling block right now in trying to move people back into society is affordable housing. It is, and there is nothing here. There's no transitional housing to mount anything, and much of the grant money that was available to do those things is not available anymore. So you just have to deal with what you can. I mentioned a guy that had found him a place. He looked for 6 months and finally got on a waiting list, and just his number came up. So he lived at the shelter for 6 months, ready for housing, just couldn't find anything.
And you mentioned the HUD vouchers. I don't have any experience with them, so I'm just going to conjecture. I presume, I hope, what it covers first month, last month security deposit,
Right.
or just that.
And
Okay.
Gives you a stipend on the rent. Even places where the rent is based on your income do not have a lot of vacancies. Yeah, HUD voucher, we don't do that, but other caseworkers do. If you have a job, there's qualifications to get that, but the vouchers do not cover nearly what it is. And this is my opinion. There are many landlords that really don't want to put people with HUD vouchers in their properties because maybe past experience and that sort of thing. So their solution's simple. Just raise the rent till these people can't afford it. And I think that's what happens. That's unfortunate that, somebody's had a bad experience and won't give somebody another chance, another person a chance. But that seems to be what's happening. There's some discussion in Valdez about taking the old mills that are empty and turning them into housing. Now, is that going to be affordable housing? I don't know. And the problem with that is that most of the jobs are in Morganton. And if you don't have dependable transportation, they say we have a mass transit system, but it's not much. So really there needs to be a more affordable housing here in Morganton. They're converting some of these old mills, but they're pretty exclusive places. And I don't know that, it's kind of one of those things. Everybody wants affordable housing, but nobody wants it in their backyard. And I think that that's a problem here in Morganton. Morganton is a small town. There are powers that be here that are outside the political system but have political pull. And those folks sort of dictate what is for sale and what is built, and a lot of it is competition. A lot of it is just, no, we don't want another affordable housing complex because all it is trouble, or that's their take on it. So I don't know what the answer is. The other than affordable housing, I think the another barrier is mental health care. This is my opinion. When the state privatized mental health care, I think that it left a lot of people out of the system. I have met people who really need to be institutionalized for a short time, and there's no place. There's a psychiatric unit at the local hospital, but all they do is stay a week and let them out. I don't know that they have any real care, and most of the mental health programs now are so costly that the average person can't afford it.
Given your experience and the work you're doing now, if you were to just address, I don't know if you want to address churches in general or churches in specific situations, whether it be rural or suburban or urban, I think a lot of your urban churches are going to be more, as you were, in touch with the need. It's visible,
Right.
oftentimes in inner cities. But if you address smaller churches, rural churches, what might they do to be more engaged? Say,
Well, I think one thing they can do is support the homeless shelters. There's meal program. We have churches that will, say at Christmas, gather items, socks, toboggans. And I'm not saying just for the homeless shelter, but for the homeless population in general. I think a lot of churches, especially the rural churches, are not aware of where the homeless are because they try to stay invisible. But there are people in the community that know where those camps are, and we can lead them to them. And blankets, sleeping bags, socks, toboggans, gloves, food. A rural church can decide, okay, on this day, we're going to cook X number of meals, and we're going to take them to the camp. Those people appreciate it. I think the misconception for many homeless people is they're drug addicts, they're alcoholics, and all they need to do is get a job. Well, that's great, if they could get a job. But many homeless people have just fell on bad luck. They've lost their job. They were working payday to payday. They've lost their job. That means they lost their housing, they've lost their car, they've lost everything. And they just need a little help. And I've found that most homeless folks are very appreciative of anything that a church could do. There's plenty that rural churches could do. Just identify a need and fill that need. And, a lot of rural churches, smaller churches say, well, but we can't do much, but you can do something. And I think that's an important thing. I think that we in the church may have perhaps lost our calling to the least and the last. Sometimes we in the church believe that you just need to get cleaned up. And not to preach, but Jesus didn't ask people to get cleaned up. Just come as you are. And I think the church could do a far better job of trying to understand and trying to give people a little grace in their life. When I was in Charlotte, you go for Sunday service and you got 3 sleeping on the doorstep. Invite them in, give them something to eat. I don't know a church that doesn't have some kind of food somewhere. If it's a pack of crackers or something, bottle of water. And I think we in the church could do a better job in identifying those that are on the edge. And in my experience, when I was in Charlotte, and this goes back to that program, it's called Room in the Inn. And,
my parents volunteered with that, and my dad drove the van for years.
Really?
Room in the Inn. I grew up at First UMC in Charlotte.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're familiar with the program, but you invite the homeless in to spend the night. They get a shower, they get a meal, and always did a devotion. And it did not fail that when we were going to pray, one of the homeless would say, "Can I pray?" And they'd pray the most beautiful prayers. I think some people believe that if you're homeless, you don't have a faith. That you're in this situation because you lack faith. And I think that most of the homeless folks that I've run into have a whole lot greater faith than I do because they're counting on God for tomorrow. And it always blessed me to see how those homeless folks would step up there and pray and talk about God and talk about how Jesus has helped them through their trials. I mean, there's many times it turned into a testimony time. So I think that the church would do well to take another look at and look by the homeless. If you can't see them, you can't help them. And there's times that you can just stop. Now, I'm not saying, this guy out here on the street looking for money. I don't have any right now, but I used to keep $10 McDonald's gift certificates in my wallet all the time. And if they are truly hungry, they'll take a gift certificate. Now, if they're looking for something else, maybe they won't. But I would advise anybody, don't give them cash. Give them a gift certificate. Put them in the back of your car and take them to eat. I think that society has started to believe that homeless aren't human. And they're just like us. And I think that's real important. The old saying is, there but by the grace of God go I. And I think that the church could step up and do more in many areas, but especially in helping the needy. And I hope we will. I believe that that is the place that the church could make the most difference in society today. Oh, and I'm sure, they've got all these safety nets now. They've got Medicaid, and they've got food stamps, and they've got this and that. That doesn't excuse the church from doing what the church should do. Because that's all you had years ago. Before Medicaid, before food stamps, the church filled that gap. And I think that it's time for the church to do it again.